Okay. It appears that I should be live at this moment. There might be a slight delay with YouTube, but this should be live. Right now we have 0 viewers as expected. So I'm just going to go through and I suppose wait for about 5 minutes. This stream is going to be about 45 minutes long. It's not going to be very long. Normally we were getting an hour of video, and this is designed to just be a little bit shorter because I don't want to talk for too long, basically. Yeah, and because I haven't debated in the last month, here I'll switch to my scene. Because I haven't debated in the last month, I'm actually just going to be primarily focusing on the future of this channel and stuff like that. So for our whoever is watching at the moment, this is basically the rundown of what's going to happen. We have 3 things to talk about today. 15 minutes each seems like a good breakdown. So the first is just what I'm going to do with this channel in the future. I think I should actually be uploading regularly, so I'll have a video Thanksgiving weekend and then the weekend afterwards. I wasn't uploading as regular as I should be because of college applications and things that are frankly beyond my control. Basically, I just had too much work to do, and this is something that I do for fun, so I just wasn't uploading anything. I know on Reddit a couple of times I promised a presidential election rundown. I decided I'm not going to do that. If you want to get election news and people's opinions on that, ask anybody, because I'm sure they have a strong opinion on the election, and if they don't, that's a huge surprise, and they should be, I don't know if it's lauded, but at least acknowledged for not having an opinion. Regardless, election discussions aren't things that I want to have on this channel because it's about debate. If I really want to do that, I would start my own podcast about something completely differently. So that's not what I'm focusing on. So the three things that we're going to talk about. The first is the future of this channel. The second is basically the notion of bid hunting. It's something that I've been thinking about recently because I've had to sign up for all the tournaments that we're going to in the future, and it's something that seems really weird to me. The third is just debating for change, and this is something more. It's weird. It's something more meant for, I suppose, LD and policy debaters, and it's in relation to pre-fiat impacts to cases, and why doing that to win rounds is probably disingenuous and bad. Anyway, I'll just tell my opinions on pre-fiat impacts, because I think they're one of the best things about debate and one of the worst things about debate, which is unfortunate. And I'll share my experience in regards to that. So, and by all means, the 3 people who are watching right now, please comment as much as possible. It's steadily ticking up, I suppose. Comment as much as possible, because that way I can actually engage with you guys, and it's not just a static conversation where I'm just talking into a camera. Also, I hope everybody likes my new mic setup. I got a nicer mic. This will hopefully improve the audio quality a little bit, maybe get rid of the delay. I'm still trying to fix that. The camera's on a delay, so the audio might be unsynced, and it's incredibly annoying to me. I don't know about y'all. Then I got this nice white screen behind me just to block the light and then the light in front of my face. So anyway, let's talk about the future of DebateCasts. The future of DebateCasts on the 8th episode of them. It's not like they've been around for very long. Anyway, so I am going to be uploading, and I'm actually going to stick to this once a week, this hour-long video, because it's fun to do with my friends. They'll just come over, and when we have a sleepover, we do churn this out for an hour, and then we just go hang out. So that's always fun to do. The thing that I also want to do is this crystallization thing. I added it into the DebateCast description. Basically, that channel is meant to specifically just go through a 15-minute rundown of the most recent tournament. So in this case, I could talk about Villager, I think Glenbrooks, so other tournaments like that. Unfortunately, on the weekend it's a little tougher, so I'll probably record it on a Wednesday night, sometime when I have a little more time. So that's just going to be a quick 15-minute, hey, here's my opinion on who won this tournament and stuff like that, and that's it. So hopefully DebateCast will be a more social, sort of, sit back, longer event where I just sort of chat, and then those crystallizations will be just the information burst that is interspersed throughout DebateCast. So as a result, the podcast styles will start shifting away from my opinions on different tournaments, unless they're brought up by commenters, and more about just general fun things about debate. So the style that I'm going to be having in this topic. So somebody's asking to talk about Bronx. No, I'm not going to talk about Bronx because I have opinions on the round, and my opinions could be hurtful to some of the people. I know that round was recorded. I don't know where the recording went. It's unfortunate because no Nueva team has a recording of that round, and we like to review. It's like in any event, you review game tape. So I record when occasionally I'll ask my opponents to record a round, or most of the time I steal Alan Abbott's recordings or get his recordings, and those recordings are really helpful because I'll say, oh, I said this right, and then like Griffin didn't extend it, or I didn't extend what Griffin said, or Griffin and I had no consistency, whatever, right? We can break down the problems, and that's really useful. So it would be nice to record at Bronx. Oh, okay, so I thought you were talking about the final round. Either way, we don't have a recording of the final round. We didn't break at Bronx for numerous reasons. Griffin and I, I guess I just wasn't focused. I was frantically writing my MIT application. It was just this collection of factors. Griffin and I weren't supremely interested in the tournament at that time. We just have a bad track record with Bronx as well. We were just disengaged, and hopefully, since we're only going to tournaments late in the year, so Griffin had this, like, this is my opinion. Griffin had this fun project that he was working on, which he was working really hard on, and I think it detracted from the amount of time that we spent researching and absorbing the material. I was writing applications, so in the same way, just as Griffin was distracted, I was too. And I take just as much, if not more, blame because I think I debated badly at that tournament. Not to mention, 2 judges apologized to us after the round for making the wrong decision. It was just a big mess. So Bronx is a whole thing. Either way, I'll talk about that at the end. I'll talk about like our 7th round at Bronx. Anyway, so that's basically the future of DebateCast, right? I'm going to do this once a week. I'm going to try to stick to a schedule. It'll either be Saturday or Sunday at 4 whenever I have friends over, basically, because this will be the social event. And then, yeah. So the next topic that's a little bit more interesting to me. Have I ever? So somebody's asking, have I ever won a tournament yet? Not sure what you mean by that. I have won 2 tournaments. We won Harker and Berkeley, neither of which I won because we closed out them, but one of them I'm pretty sure we would have won. That's Berkeley. And Harker, Matt and Jake are pretty good, so I'm not sure how that would have shaken down. Yeah, and then we finaled at 2 other tournaments. This was all last year. We did quite well last year. This year is off to a shaky start, but like I said, we've been extremely distracted, and this Septober topic, that's what like Keshav likes to call it, I've never heard it called that before, is atrocious. So either way, I don't really know what happened. Regardless, so that's sort of my like breakdown of what's going to happen in the future, and I guess our start to this year. In some way, I didn't want to do this DebateCast, or didn't do this for so long because I felt unsuccessful in debate. It's fun to like celebrate victories, because like, whatever, but like not breaking at Bronx was the first time Griffin and I had not broken since the TOC, and it was the second time that Griffin and I have not broken at a tournament ever, which was like shocking to us, and it was certainly jarring to me. So that's something that I just sort of had to deal with, and just like take time to reconcile why we didn't break and how we can break in the future. Because while any of my peers will tell you this, I always get nervous before normal rounds, but I always felt that my nervousness was sort of, I don't know, my nervousness was silly because we would always break, and not breaking sort of shook me. It just made me lose a lot of confidence in my ability to debate. My school code, I suppose, is, I actually have no idea. My school is the Nueva School. We're like a tiny private school in San Mateo area. Yeah, I am Nueva AT. I'm the like A part of Nueva AT. Yeah. So anyway, I haven't like even engrossed myself in the world of debate in a very long time as a result of that. So that's basically the way that it shook down. Um, I was primarily thinking about um, bid hunting. So there's no big December topic tournaments that I really know of. Um, they all seem fairly small. Plus, the December topic isn't that great. Actually, I have no idea what it is. But basically, I don't think December is like a month worth debating, especially because it doesn't work that well with at least so this I'm responding to this from like my personal opinion. Doesn't work that well for my school because December is a month with a lot of work. It certainly doesn't work very well to go to like Blake, which is a December tournament, but it debates on the January topic because we will have zero prep for then. Basically, the December topic as a whole, the entire December thing is a whole mess. December is Plan Columbia, right? The plan that was officially ended several years ago and then revitalized under a different name and a bunch of stuff. Either way, my advice would be don't go to December tournaments. And if you do want to, I don't know of any good ones. That's the one thing that I can certainly not offer any help on because I hate December topics and I hate December tournaments because they don't work with my school. So anyway, I think the best thing, or the weirdest thing that like debaters do is bid hunting. This is like sort of the second thing on my agenda. It's like the second thing to talk about. Bid hunting is like this very weird idea where you try to get as many bids as possible and like you're just like hunting for these things. So looking at the teams that are already qualified to the TOC, just on like, I'll shift the thing. So looking at the teams that are already qualified, right? You'll see that some teams, so there's the two Nueva teams that are qualified. Some teams have like 2 bids and then they're just sort of like chilling with 2 bids. And other teams, you saw this particularly more in the 2014 year, would get like 11 bids. So like Stuyvesant KU is like really reminiscent to this. And I talk about this because as Nueva debaters, we feel like we're in a place where we can discuss going for a lot of bids, because we generally do decently well as a school and as individual teams. So the prospect of bid hunting is quite open to us, and the people that we compete with and the people that we're friends with actively engage in bid hunting. Basically, I don't think bid hunting is good. Going for 11 bids, so this is the current bid list, right? Going for 11 bids, or whatever Devesh is going for with 4 and then however many more he wants, to me seems silly. I understand that winning tournaments, so them winning presentation and University of the Pacific is fantastic, and like going to win tournaments and debate more is super fun, and that I'm happy with people doing. But going to get bids seems disingenuous to me because I suppose in some sense artificially inflating the playing field of the TOC, and you're also just taking away an opportunity from people who want those bids and frankly in some sense deserve them just as much as you, right? Because you, by having 8 bids, don't gain anything from that. All you get to say is that you had 8 bids, and I would rather have somebody who never gets to go to the TOC go to the TOC rather than like have 8 bids. So that's why like I'm a little bit less inclined to jump into bid hunting and try to get as many bids as possible. I will go to tournaments that I love, which is why in my senior year, perhaps, I'm a little more discriminating about which tournaments to go to. So I'll probably only go to 3 more tournaments in this year, or maybe 4 if you include the TOC. I'll go to MLK, I will go to Stanford, and then I will go to Berkeley because those are the back-to-back weekends. Those are fantastic tournaments, and they'll be lovely to try out, right? And those are tournaments that I love. Like, save MLK. MLK is just to get the bid and get it out of the way, because we're not qualified, right? That's not bid hunting. But I won't go, for example, to like ASU and then Golden Desert and then every other subsequent tournament that has a bid, because A, I don't need to, and B, traveling to those to just get that extra bid isn't really helpful, right? There's a bright line. There's a point in time in which traveling across the country to get a bid or whatever isn't worth it to me. It's more fun to compete in a local tournament, albeit how poorly they're run, than to fly across the nation to compete sometimes. The sometimes is important. Obviously the TOC is an exception and other things like that. So yeah, that's like my opinion on bid hunting. Because this is something that I get from Nueva, I suppose. Some teams at Nueva actively talk about, setting a bid record. And while that's great and that indicates some level of success, some people can set bid records losing in octos or losing in their bid round of every tournament, which is not setting a bid record, right? That means that you can get to that tournament and then you can't go any further, which is not helpful and not useful, or neither of those things. It's just not interesting. It's not fun. And for me, debate above all else is just fun, right? Like, why would I participate in the activity if I didn't love it? And going for the express purpose of winning isn't exciting. Going for the express purpose of getting a bid isn't exciting. To see your name one more time on a spreadsheet, not very fun. To win a tournament, incredibly exciting, right? So take into account, this is what I ask everybody to do. If you get to the point where you're bid hunting, take into account how difficult a tournament is and how fun it will be to debate, because debating against great people is awesome, right? And you can often only do that in elim rounds, and then you'll take a bid spot from somebody else. But going to every single tournament in the nation loses the value of each incremental tournament. So we flew to Bronx so that I could be done with bids. We went to Yale and Bronx. That was because I couldn't go to Harker, so I wanted to be done with bids through the entire year. I just wanted to be done. I wanted to be qualified to the TOC. I could relax through November and December, and then January I could even skip and then only debate February, like we did last year. That's not going to happen because we didn't qualify to the TOC, so now I'm going to have to debate January, so on and so forth. But either way, in either world, my goal is to qualify and then have fun. My goal is not to get as many bids as possible. It's that mindset, while the result might be very similar, it's the mindset that I disagree with, right? Just shooting for bids on bids on bids isn't useful and isn't fun. That's just sort of my thing, my spiel. I hate teams. And you will meet teams at national tournaments that value success based on bids, and that's no fun. I also dislike teams that value success based on name reputation. Like, oh, you're Nueva XZ or XT. Like, oh, cool, you guys are so good. That's so silly. If you want to hang out with people because of that, that's fine, right? But just naming people's names and saying, oh, you're so good, let's like lord over you and whatever, let's fawn over you, is very silly. And I suppose, in many senses, I sort of conflate the two ideologies where I think people sometimes want to get bids so that they can be that 11-bid team, right? Or they can beat Stuyvesant KU's record and they can have all the bids that they want and so on and so forth so that people recognize their name, which I think is just silly. Anyway, so this person is asking a question saying, how long do you research before a tournament daily, and how do you manage to debate and school? I'll first do the split between debate and school. So at our school, debate is a class, which means that if you do debate, debate as a class, then it requires significantly less difficulty to manage debate in school because the class is essentially a work period or a practice time, which means you need to go to less sessions after school and so on and so forth. And you can do work in the class for any of your classes and anything like that. That's just the way our class is structured, which makes it easier to manage the two. However, regardless, I'm not in that class this week or this semester, which means for me, it's a little bit more difficult to manage debate in school, and because of college applications, it sort of manifested us in our like horrible record at Bronx and Yale, where we just weren't necessarily prepared and just didn't know that many arguments on the topic. I was caught by surprise for one of the first times ever by an argument at Bronx, which is weird because normally I was decently well read on the topic and so on and so forth, and this time I just wasn't. I just didn't know the argument, right? And I'd never heard it before, and I didn't understand it until Griffin's summary, and at that point we had basically lost the round, right? So there are times in which you will have too much school to do debate, and then that sucks. There's nothing that I can say to help with that. It just sucks. But yeah, that's that's just the way that it shakes down sometimes. Um, so I manage debate in school by either taking the debate class, which certainly helps in numerous ways because it allows me to offset my time and it allows me to take one of my elective slots and devote that time to debate. Whereas if I had it in a different class, I would be spending work. I would have extra homework on top of that, right? I lose the 3 hours a week or 3.5 hours a week, and I would have extra homework. So I would lose like 6 hours in a week. And 6 hours is a lot of time, right? 6 hours is almost an hour a day that you could be spending on debate, which is a ton of time. The second, or I guess the first part of your question was how do you manage debate in school? That's something that I guess is dependent on everybody. So I I don't do as much debate research as I probably should, and I will do more debate research in January because I've seen the effects of not doing debate research in the September topics. But the easiest way is to just do debate as something that's very fun. If debate is very fun, then the work becomes less tough. So on, I guess, Apple, or like I have like a MacBook for school, like a MacBook Pro, and the software looks like this. If I like do this, you can see how I have multiple windows here. So like here I have like my Spotify and stuff like that, and then you can see like all the windows that I have, right? So one of these spaces, so on Apple they're called spaces. One of these spaces, so in this case desktop 4, on my Mac computer is exclusive to it's exclusive to debate. I only put debate stuff there. And I just organized my life this way because it makes more sense to me. So I have like this space for whatever work I'm doing at the moment, and then this for like chemistry, and then physics, and then like whatever. Because oftentimes I'll have enough stuff to do that I can't just close a window and then reopen it later. I'll just have like everything open at once. So one space I devote exclusively to debate. So I'll have like my blocks there, and then some cards that I'm cutting, and then like a Google Doc where I'm putting my evidence in and stuff like that. And all that enables me to, I'll switch it back. All that enables me to just, in between, it's like a passing period, and I just like pop open my laptop, swap over to the tab, quickly cut a card, and then like go back to doing whatever other work I have. That's just like, that's just the way that it shakes down. I just keep debate always up as a thing that I can always do, because that's better. And because I don't find it like work, I find it more fun, which means I'm happy to do it at any time. Whereas, if I'm not doing, for example, like my chemistry homework, I will leave it up when I still have something to finish, but it won't be up in my math class where like, we have like a work period and I'm like, oh, let me just finish cutting this card. And Leonard, you didn't see that. Leonard's my math teacher. Anyway, so the idea is, right, I will do debate whenever I have free time and whenever I'm just bored. So in the same way that like this is what like Kevin Kleiman taught me at Sniffy like 2 years ago. So he got into the habit of cutting cards while watching Netflix, and now whenever he watches Netflix, cutting cards is like an immediate response, which I tried to do, and it's like a Pavlovian reaction, right? I open up Netflix and I'm like, cool, let me open up my Google Doc with whatever blocks I have, because some activities are mindless enough that you can do something else while doing them. So, you pop up in Netflix and you just like type in whatever else you want. I think that's fun. And I think treating the research activity, right, as like a more mindless, simpler activity is better. Reading through papers, I find more difficult because you can't just like cut cards really quickly. Articles are easier. So, if you're going to spend a concerted amount of time on debate, save all the scientific articles or like journal articles for that, because they require you to read through the whole thing, or the studies, right? I can't cut studies as easily while watching Netflix as I can from some like Ars Technica article. Those are really easy to do because literature written in magazines and not journalistic magazines is very simple, whereas scientific and historical magazines are much more difficult to read, right? So you just have to balance your workload. And this is super helpful for everything everything that you want, right? It's like incredibly helpful for reading history articles, because now, instead of taking your break just watching TV, which I think everybody should take breaks and do something at least, you can cut articles for history as well. So doing all of that is really useful, and it just like bleeds into every activity in your life. So anyway, that's sort of my opinion on how you can do research in a little bit better manner. I probably won't be the one to do this. Maybe I'll do like a DebateCast tutorial on like research. I should do that series as well. So other things, somebody's asking where I am applying to college. There's no need to know that. I don't know why. Like, I'm happy sharing it with my friends and my family and my peers at school, but like random people on the internet, why? There's zero incentive for me to do so. And it just seems silly, right? Like, people are entitled to I understand it's just interesting to ask, but people are entitled to some level of like privacy, I suppose. Anyway, so I'm just not going to answer that because it's silly. And plus, this cast is about debate and about little else. So yeah, that's sort of my spiel on research. I think that doing research efficiently. So Griffin, I don't know how he does research, but it's very similar that he's always researching, right? Whether or not you're cutting cards or anything, doing the work constantly enables you to understand the material better than anything else, right? Reading through cards that people have cut will not help you. Reading through cards that you are cutting will help you significantly. So that's just like the two trade-offs. It's the double-sided to the coin, right? You can do more work and get a better experience, or you can do less work and get a little bit worse of an experience. So yeah, that's just the thing. It's my thing on debate. If people have any other questions or any other things that they want to hear, please tell me. So somebody's asking, what's your mindset going into tough rounds? The mindset is that there are no tough rounds because debate is an inherently subjective activity and anybody can win any round and anybody can lose any round. So there are people that are like good at debate. They have done a lot of work. They are good at speaking and things like that, but know that in no way in no way can you not be good at debate. Like, you can always get to that point. And in no way does that mean that you can't win the round, right? You can always beat the other team. You just have to debate smarter and better than them. And if you do, then you win. And if you don't, then you lose, right? So that's my mindset. But really, my mindset going into tough rounds is just nervousness, or really, really lack thereof of nervousness. So I get super nervous before rounds for whatever reason until I see my opponents. It's this like total perceptual thing until I look at them. And I'm like, okay, now I know who they are. I will imagine that they are somebody unbeatable. So when we're Flight 2 and we're just like sitting in the cafeteria, those are the most groaning, like just excruciating experiences. Because we're Flight 2, I'm sitting in the cafeteria, and I'm just waiting to see my opponents. And all the while, I'm imagining, unless I know their team code, they are the best debaters I've ever seen. I don't know why I do this. It just happens. I just do it. I have no explanation as to why. But if I know the team code, which is generally better debaters because they're people I'm more friends with, so it's like if I know I'm facing Hawken EL or I know I'm facing Mission KC, well, not Mission KC, they're not great. If I know I'm facing Mission KW, then I'll be like, okay, this is now I know who these people are. I have like some metric of how good they are. Great, I'm much more calm with those rounds. Those rounds are much more fun too, because if you're debating people you're friends with, then they're cool. Why? I guess somebody's asking for my thoughts on Oakwood FO. I don't really have many opinions on Oakwood FO. They're a great team. Elefhanger is a god. Nate Odenkirk's okay. I mean, that's it. They're pretty cool people too. But like, I haven't hung out with them that much. I have no idea, right? Like, I also haven't seen them debate that many times. I've only seen them debate like Matt and Jake, in which case the round is always tougher and it's more exciting to see people in tough rounds. But, you know, I don't get basically, I think the debate dynamic is skewed one way. One debater is definitely better. I think Ella is better than Nate, but they're both super good, so it doesn't really matter, which is why they're like an elite team and they're, you know, in the top classes, whereas other teams who have one partner who is much better than somebody else isn't, right? So, you know, they have a very even dynamic. There are better people, but they're a very good team. That's really all I can say. So opinions on, I'll just do my total opinions. Opinions on Mission KC. Devesh sucks. Robert's pretty chill. I keep saying Devesh sucks because I started out the first debate cast writing Devesh sucks on a whiteboard. We just know them really well. They're the closest school to us, and they're good. Right, they're just like 30 minutes or like 45 minutes south from our school, south like east. So it's fun, like, because we all hang out at the tournament. We're all California debaters from like the Bay Area. We're very close to each other. Yeah, I like Mission KW a lot. We're just friends. That's it. Like, I can off they're both teams are very good. Both teams are friends of ours. That's it, right? And probably our closest friends on the debate circuit. Matt and Jake have like friends from the East Coast when they did camps and stuff like that. Keshav and Max are like, we see them at every single tournament we go to. It's hard not to become friends with them. Plus, they're just cool people. Yeah, that's my opinions on them. I don't know Mission GM. I don't know any. I'm very. This is why I always have Chris here, because he's constantly on the subreddit and he knows a bunch of teams. I don't know many teams on the debate circuit. I know the ones that I'm friends with, and I know the ones that know me, and that's it. Like the ones that know me, I mean like the ones that I talk to. Other than that, I have no idea. I knew a lot of the teams last year that graduated, but now I don't know them. Or now I don't know any of the new teams. Other things. Speed Cube for the win. I'll get to your question in a second. I'll just finish my opinion rant first. What teams am I personally afraid of? Again, you should be afraid of no teams, because no team is so unequivocally good that they can beat you in every single round. Right? There has existed no team such as that, and there will exist no team that is that good. So I'm not afraid of any teams. Right? There are people that I'd rather not debate. I'd rather not debate Max and Keshav until out rounds or late out rounds at a tournament. I would hate to hit them in a bubble round because that would be less fun, or I'd hate to hit them in our bid round because that would be less fun. But certainly in no way am I scared of any team, right? And nobody should be, because you can just win. You can always win a round. And it's not an example of cockiness. It's an example of like a different mindset. I just think that any round is winnable, and therefore, why should I be scared about a team, right? And that's just sort of my thing. Yeah. So Speed Cube for the win is asking if I am a naturally good speaker and found it easy to break at tournaments, or there was a gradual development. Gradual is probably a bit of an unfair. I think it's like more of like I guess like a logarithmic scale. That's the right word, right? Yeah, because basically we started off in freshman year. Everybody at Nueva, by the way, started off in freshman year so incredibly bad. It's almost hilarious. I think the easiest way to describe it is like a function of y, in like a cubic function of y. So let's just do this. I'm just drawing out a function in Desmos, because why not? Okay, so basically here's the idea. The idea is it was a slow development for us at the beginning. It was just a huge grind. We had to constantly, we were constantly losing every round. It was just, debate was just an activity for fun, and nothing more. Now we've become good at debate. Like to participate in debate at that time, it had to just be fun. It could be nothing else. Because in no way were we good enough to say, oh yes, I like debate because we're good, because we weren't, right? I don't think not a single Nueva person broke in debate freshman year, I do believe, which is crazy, right? Like, so a team that now consistently breaks 3 or 4 teams at every tournament that we send teams to did not break a single debater. Part of that is the reason why part of that is as a result of us shifting to varsity our freshman year. Part of that is because we just didn't understand the event very well. That's just sort of the way it worked. So this is my opinion of how we sort of grew. Ignore this end of the scale, this end. We started off here, right, as 0. And this was the inception, where if you imagine the x-axis is time and the y-axis is skill. And then we sort of, we gradually improved little by little our freshman year until about our sophomore year, in which we broke at a tournament. So that was exciting, right? Fascinating. We finally broke at a debate tournament. I think sophomore year was the first time I broke at a debate tournament. Which, whatever. So then after breaking, we started debating better and better people. And after debating better people, you get incrementally better, right? So our sophomore year was defined with us constantly debating like Harker GK and other teams like that we would always lose to, but we learned from them, right? And learning from them made us much better. So this is sort of like our gradual improvement. Then came some weird jump in between our sophomore and junior year, right? Our sophomore year, the best thing that we had done was Berkeley quarters. We did fantastically. We lost to the same team that we had lost to 3 times before that basically stopped us from getting bids to the TOC. But anyway, in between the summer of sophomore and junior year, Griffin and I went to a camp. When I say we, I normally mean Griffin and I. We went to a camp, and for whatever reason, when we came back to debate in October or in the September topic about reparations, we were strangely good. We were able to consistently win rounds. We won lay and flow rounds without too much trouble, right? And we were consistently getting to the finals at tournaments or winning them, right? Because we went to 4 tournaments at September. First we got to finals, then we won the tournament, then we didn't break, or we lost in, trips at Bronx. Bronx doesn't work well for us. And then we went to finals at UOP, right? So we had consistently done well. This was like this strange jump. And then ever since then, we've seen very incremental benefits. You start getting a little more techie with skills, and this sort of plateaus around here, right? The slope decreases a lot, and eventually just asymptotically reaches a certain level, and then we just haven't improved since then. Or we're still on this trajectory. We're still improving every subsequent round that we do, but the improvement is less and less. And it more just becomes of how well do we know the topic, and the more we know the topic, the better we will do. That's just sort of the way it broke down. So honestly, all we've done is it's this weird trajectory, right? It's this function of Y graph. That's just the way that I can only describe it. I think I was naturally a good speaker because I had a lot of practice in doing it. I was always in Model United Nations, which is something that I promptly gave up on after experiencing debate, because debate was way more fun. We had a debate class in 7th grade that I took, and in 8th grade. It was just fun to do public speaking, right? So the activity of just speaking in front of a crowd or in front of other people did not daunt me. However, I was not a good debater, right? So the link between being a good speaker and breaking consistently at tournaments is not fair. I could probably do well in extemp and maybe other events, but again, everything requires a lot of practice. So the first event that I ever broke in was extemp because I was a better speaker than I was debater, right? I did not understand the event of debate. Along this sort of sophomore year, we started debating better teams and started understanding debate, and then we're like, oh, okay, now that we get it, let's continue to, accelerate our growth. So I would not say that I started off good and got better. I started off atrocious and got better. That's really it. And this is probably how most people start too, right? There's some point where you reach just an acceleration of knowledge, because the moment you start debating better and better teams, you learn from them. Whether or not you lose or win, you learn a lot. And this is probably started by one judge at Berkeley when we were sophomores told us that we should take notes after every RFD, and that she would drop us in the next round if we didn't take notes after the RFD. Ever since then, at every single decision, no matter who the judge is, I will always ask why they voted or what opinions they had on the round, or what thoughts they had on the round. And then I will take notes on the very flow, because then I know what I need to do in the next round. And I still do that in every round, and I think many Nueva people do. because you get an incremental improvement after every subsequent round. And if you change your strategy between rounds, and I mean strategy in everything, right? You change your opinions, you change your ideas, change the cases that you write, you change the way that you can communicate different pieces of information, you will get substantially better. So that's right about here. The judge was like, hey, write down everything that you need to do better after a round, because the judges are judging you, and if they know what you need to do better, then you need to do that. And then I was like, okay. And then I got a huge bump from that. That's sort of my opinion. And it also bumped up with our care of and like how much fun we had with debate. Debate can be a slog sometimes. If you're constantly losing, it cannot feel super fun, especially if you come from an environment that is incredibly success driven. I know that for some people, coming home after losing is difficult because then you have to explain why you lost. That was certainly the case for me. So whenever I had to come home, I would have to explain to my mom, oh, this is why we lost, and I just didn't want to do it. So that is very difficult, and it made me not want to lose, but it also made me not love debate so much because I was consistently losing. And then I decided to actually work hard at debate, and we ended up doing decently well. So that's, sort of the thing. Also, I was partnered with Will here, and I was partnered with Griffin here. So you can certainly see there's a big bump up from a partner change. So yeah, that's just that's my sort of thing. Anything else people want me to talk about? Otherwise, I'm going to move on to discussing pre-fiat impacting in cases. This is something that I know very little about because I don't debate LD or policy, and pre-fiat impacting in public forum is very rare. So I'll switch it over to my view, I suppose. So I think that pre-fiat impacting is like super exciting because nothing is more interesting than saying like, what you say and what you do has this extremely crucial real-world ramification, right? The idea of, having some sort of implication based on fiat, right? So fiat, for people who don't know, is this idea of like a plan or a solution being enacted by the result of a ballot. So in public forum, fiat doesn't necessarily exist to the way that it's classically described. In policy and LD, you have some plan and you say, hey, fiat does this. Right? Like when you vote affirmative, this thing happens in the real world. Let's evaluate that world where this thing happens. In public forum, that's a little bit different. In public forum, fiat functions as a way for you to evaluate two distinct worlds, in which case that's not actual fiat. Because you're saying there's this world and then there's this world, right? There's a world with probable cause and a world with no probable cause. The AF ballot has the power to make a world with probable cause, but nothing more. And if that kind of fiat, which isn't actually fiat, that's just actually like debate, doesn't exist, then the AF will lose every round because the AF will say, here's this world that we can't actually impact to. Anyway, it's not even worth discussing. Regardless, here's sort of the breakdown. Pre-fiating works in two ways. The first way is you said this, so I watched this in the Arnesons round against some team at the TSC where this team was saying really, really essentially racist things. It was about like welfare versus infrastructure development, right? And the team was saying, oh, the people who get welfare, and basically, they don't want to work. They don't want to succeed. They're not real Americans. Things that were just abhorrent to say and hear, as a matter of fact. Like, I walked out of that round partially because I had to go to my next round, although it didn't really matter, and partially because I was just disgusted with what I was hearing, right? And there's a whole thing about why, walking out of places that participate in discussions that you don't like isn't necessarily good because you should expose yourself to those things. But either way, the arguments that were being made from one side were just actually bigoted and racist and just horrific to hear. And I don't know how people said them. And they might have been doing them unconsciously and just not knowing what they were saying, but either way, they were bad arguments being made. So I started talking, or the Arnesons came up in their rebuttal and started off with essentially a pre-fiat voter framework in which they said, our opponents said all these really, really bad things. You should drop them the round exclusively because of that. Before you evaluate anything else in the debate, and we often call this term a priori, but that's just because people like saying Latin, before you do anything else, you should think about the rhetoric and the words that they used. And then you should evaluate that and say, hey, that stuff is wrong, and I have to send a message to them saying that is wrong. Now, that's a typical way that pre-fiat impacting is done. In many ways, pre-fiat impacting is, hey, they said something, or what we're saying is very important, so before you evaluate anything else, evaluate what we say, and in which case, you should vote for us to send a message, right? Because I could say that what we're saying is important, but it doesn't affect the round in any way unless I tell the judge why they should vote for us because of that. So, pre-fiat impacting, very good. It's very powerful in the way that the Arnisans used that in that round. No judges voted off of it, but the Arnisans were also winning on the flow, so they didn't need to. But either way, the judges weren't conditioned to vote off of this a priori reason, and so they didn't, but they should have. They should have just voted for the Arnisans after rebuttal saying, what the other team is saying is wrong, and that kind of language should not be used, because that kind of language perpetuates ideologies that lead to bigotry and lead to like actual problems in society. And whereas everything else in debate is almost entirely hypothetical, that is real. What he says is real, right? Or he or she says. What they say is truly real, and it affects people in the way that they think and operate. That's a very powerful argument to make, and it was made incredibly eloquently by, I think, Sam Arneson. So that argument, right, is a great way to use pre-fiat impacting, because that says, hey, judge, you have to vote down this person. You have to send a message to them because they did something extremely wrong. The wrong way to use pre-fiat impacting is say, vote for me because I said something that's good, or to use it as a strategy to win. I think it was the 2012 policy TOC, maybe 2014, where one team basically that people thought didn't deserve to win the round, won the round because they talked a lot about, they basically ran some argument about their race and about how they need to bring that discourse into debate, and that fosters empathetic discussions, so on and so forth. And they're increasing inclusivity, and by winning this tournament that nobody else had done before, they would be far more inclusive, or the debate community would then subsequently be far more inclusive, because people would see individuals of their own race who have been structurally discriminated against in this event and in life being able to succeed and then participate in debate. Great argument made. That's another good way to make, that's another good way to do pre-fiat impacting, right? But the bad argument can be made when you start arguing things that you don't necessarily believe. I think the movie Resolved touches on this briefly. It's this documentary about high school policy debate where one debater just basically says you didn't believe what you were saying. One of the debaters asks, do you believe what you're saying? Which I think is a perfectly valid question, right? So my experience with this was at Bronx when I watched a policy round where we heard a team run an AF on about feminism and about how they need to improve the world of debate because it structurally oppresses females in many ways. And they cited the recent articles that were published in the Wall Street Journal, things that have been circulating around r/debate for a while. That is a very good argument to make. But after the round, just in passing while walking to the next round, I heard them talking about basically they made a really sexist comment, and it was two girls who made this comment, and it just sort of jarred me for a second, because up until then every example of pre-fiat impacting, which is this really critical style of debate, was extremely genuine. Every example that I heard. This example was not genuine. This example was done to win the round. And many people will think the debate is a thing that you can win, right? But I don't think it is. I really don't think debate is a thing that exclusively is something that you can win. It also has an effect in the world, right? What you say means something. So in this example, saying, running about how feminism is so important and then making a really sexist comment against women is so incredibly disingenuous. And it sort of it shook me. So I think people should be careful when they're running critical ideologies that in some manner they believe in what they're saying. Granted, if you're saying that capitalism is bad and it's the root cause of X, Y, and Z, it's a little bit less jarring because that impact is post-fiat. You're still participating in the game of debate as it is traditionally described. Whereas if you expand outside of that debate and you're no, the words that are said right now matter more than anything else, because everything else is hypothetical. This world of debate that we construct is fake, which is true, then you have to do it genuinely. So that's my message to probably the zero policy debaters that watch my stream, or the zero LD debaters that watch this. It's do run critical arguments about pre-fiat impacting, and like specifically like words that you use, like discourse, genuinely. And this is probably like the reason why I'm thinking about this is probably spurred by the recent election, because things are said that people thought we were disingenuous but have real power, and reality turn out to be the true ideologies of an individual. Either way, right? Saying things just to win in debate that you don't necessarily believe, when you make an argument about how your words have a lot of power, is bad. That's just incredibly hypocritical. And if people know that, then you will just lose the round. I have one bid to the gold TOC this year. That's it. Yeah. So that's the thing. You will just imagine if what you say and what you do is is something that can be used against you in a debate round, right? If you run an argument about your race and then you make extremely racialized comments that are discriminatory to other races, that's disingenuous, because you're essentially saying that your race is the one. Anyway, right? That's something that you shouldn't do. If you run something about your ethnicity or like the place that you grew up, and you truly believe that, and you act in a way that exemplifies the things that you say in round, that's the right way to do it. That's the way to do it right. That's sort of like that's my opinion on pre-fiats, right? Or like debate, like for change is the way that I have it tagged, right? Like vote for us because we will shift the discourse in this way, whatever. Anyway, that's everything that I wanted to say. So since I ran over my 45-minute time limit already, I guess I'll just take 9 more minutes, 9 less minutes that I could be spending on college applications, to answer any questions that people have. So, 5 biggest debate states. Let's see. First is I suppose I can just pull up the bid list and look at it by state, right? Yep. So, this, I hope everybody can see, yep. So this is the number of bids per state. California, then Florida, then Texas, then New York, then Minnesota. Anyway, there are your 5 biggest debate states. I can only go through 4. Really, I would have gone California, New York, then Florida, then Texas, in my opinion, especially because there's a lot of other events that are participated, right? This is public forum, whereas for policy and LD, those center heavily around the very edges of the country, right? So California and New York. Those are places with a lot of debaters. But yeah, so that's the, I don't know, that's sort of the way I think it shakes down. I think California and New York are bigger by far than any other state. I didn't even realize that Florida was this big as a state in debate until very recently. But even still, I think California and New York are so powerful on the debate circuit and just have so many tournaments in their region that it's just unfair to them, right? It's like the reverse electoral college where like whatever they do matters a lot more. Like the debate activity is centered on these 2 edges of the nation so much more than anywhere else. That's sort of my thing. Any other questions? Any other people that have any ideas as to what we should do, or what I should answer? Any advice that people want? Stuff like that. I suppose not. Yeah, so I suppose that's sort of the debate casts, episode 8. It's about changing debate and so on and so forth. Yeah, thank you, everybody. Yeah, I think this was a good reintroduction to the series, and I hope everybody liked it. I hope the audio stayed actually synced with the video this time. And if you're going to meme pre-fiating the pro ballot, actually meme correctly, because you don't pre-fiat the pro ballot, you fiat the pro ballot, because the fiat on the AF is infinite and durable.